Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Dan Ryan. I'm the manager of analytics at Riverside Healthcare. We're in northeastern Illinois, about an hour south of Chicago. I believe everyone is here from the discussion on the user web about our custom report catalog, term dictionary, data governance tool that we use. And so this is going to be a live demo of this tool. It's called Atlas. Just to let you know, I do have a hard stop at 2 o'clock that I will need to use this go-to again, so I'll have to end the meeting right at that time. But please feel free to send me an email, reach out with follow-up questions. We're already starting to work with a couple other orgs on potentially standing this up. Well, actually standing this up in their environment. So it is an open source project. If you're interested in trying it out, let me know that as well. I'm thinking about, if there's interest, possibly doing another one of these in a few weeks to a month where we walk through how to get the ETL started, how to deploy the website to a web server. So if there's further interest there, reach out to me, let me know, mention it in your questions at the end. All right, getting started, since we only have an hour, I'm going to dive into this. The backstory really is we needed better, I really call it report governance more than data governance. We needed better governance over our report documentation, making that documentation available to end users, being able to track and manage what end users were doing, and then being able to define specific concepts, metrics that end users could access via that documentation to better understand the reports that they were using. And so we explored doing that through the Epic Analytics Catalog and ultimately found that tool to be lacking. And so instead, we decided to make a tool of our own, and that is what Atlas is. And so Atlas lives as an intranet site that we host internally. It's not available external unless you access our network via the VPN. And it serves as an alternate catalog for basically, we're working towards it being all of the reporting content that is available to end users, whether it's Epic native content, so Radar dashboards, components, reporting workbench reports, embedded Epic Crystal reports. We also do most of our report development in Microsoft's SSRS platform. We have gone live in 2020. We went live on Tableau, and we're in the process of building out an extract and loading those dashboards into Atlas as well. Right now we only have about 6 Tableau dashboards, but I expect us to have Tableau in Atlas by sometime in March of this year. We're pretty close. We can do all the extracts. We just have to get it in now. We are extracting portions of slicer-dicer metadata that's also available in Clarity, and we just haven't gotten that fully integrated into the ETL yet, but we're starting to use more slicer-dicer models as well, so eventually I expect slicer-dicer to be in here as well. But right now what you're looking at is a report library of SSRS reports, Radar dashboards, dashboard components, Crystal reports, and reporting workbench reports. And so end users can come out to this website, and just a preview of what's to come. This is all also available within Hyperspace with a lot of Epic-specific Hyperspace integration as well. But I want to start out just from the web because this is how a lot of users use it, especially for SSRS report users, finance report department patient accounts. They're accessing this via the web, and so I may kind of give you a feel for that experience. So it's functions basically like a search engine. You can come out here. You have the opportunity to search for any report that's available for end users. So this is one of the big differences and the key frustration that a lot of our end users had with the Epic report library and analytics catalog, was they could only search for reports that they had access to. We opened that up so that you can now, if you're an end user, you can search for any report that has been identified as a public report, which basically means that someone has used it in the last year and a half. We do have a automatic process within the library to hide reports that haven't been used in over 18 months. But if anybody has used a report in the last year and a half, then it will show up in search. You might not have access to it, but we do provide a mechanism for you to request access to a report in the search. So that was really helpful because I'm not sure if this is the case with everyone else, but for us, some of our reporting security and Epic security templates are a little arbitrary. So especially if someone comes in, they have the same job as another person, but now that roles change, they need new access. They might not through default Epic library tools be able to find stuff that's useful for them just because of inertia from how their template was set up. They don't have access to certain report groups or user types, user roles, that sort of thing that determines dashboard and report access. So we just tried to open it up as much as possible, and then we figured if someone doesn't have access, then we'll make it easier for them to request access. And so that's been something that our end users really like and has driven people to use Atlas over the other internal Epic tools. We do allow you to favorite reports in Atlas, and so that's what people land on when they first connect to the tool. And you can create folders if you want. And move reports around in the folder. But really what it is a searching tool. So I'm going to search for HB, and I get a list of any report that has the term HB in the title, HB in the documentation somewhere. For SQL-based reports, we also bring in the query information. So it might mention HB in the query. It might mention HB somewhere in the default Epic description. So this is searching, a whole slew of different pieces of metadata related to the report. And I should say, all this happens automatically. So we have in our system, in Atlas, we have every single dashboard component, reporting workbench report, all of our SSRS reports that are deployed to a server, all ETL'd into Atlas automatically. So for the Epic native stuff, Crystal reports, that all lives in metadata tables in Clarity already. So we have ETL built off of that we load into Atlas every morning. And then SSRS, we're accessing the metadata on the SSRS server, and we actually load that in every 15 minutes. So if I go and deploy a new SSRS report to a public folder on the server right now, 15 minutes or less, it'll be in Atlas, and I can go in Atlas and complete out my documentation there. So this all happens automatically. You don't have to. So one of the things that we didn't like about the Analytics catalog was we had all of this web-based external reporting that we were using, and we couldn't just get it into the Analytics catalog. We had to go in manually and type in the URL and then punch in the documentation, and that was going to create a lot of work, and we had to do that whenever we developed a new report. This way it just comes into Atlas automatically. So as you can see, I searched for HB. I get a whole list of results. It looks a lot like the report repository, actually. We modeled a lot of this after the report repository. Get a little summary about this report. I can open the documentation if I want. I can run the report directly if I want. This is an SSRS report, so this will link me to the server to launch Report Builder if I want. And so this is, I clicked run, so this pops up the report in SSRS. I'm going to close that just in case there's PHI. I think I closed my edit report link a little too quickly. That would have launched Report Builder for you. I can also manage the report, which opens up a manage activity in SSRS. And this is nice because I can go out and I can display with subscriptions to this report directly from search results. So the focus is to, oh, it did. All right, just to show you, it did launch Report Builder over on my other screen. The focus of this is for both for end users and for the analytics team to keep us in Atlas as much as possible. You can do all the stuff that used to require us to go out to all these different websites, sometimes search through things that didn't have very good search functions. You can do it all in Atlas now, and it makes both the end users looking for reports more productive and also the analytics team more productive. And then I can, one of the primary reasons for Atlas is I can go directly into the report documentation. I can see we pull in and this part is manually populated. So the screenshots, when we develop a report, we have to, as part of our development process to close out that ticket, you have to complete the documentation for the report in Atlas. And so that includes pulling in a screenshot, populating developer description. The stub entry for it is pulled in automatically from the server, though, including quite a bit of metadata about it. The query, so query for the SSRS report. These are the different data sets within the SSRS report. They're all populated here, and what's nice about that is it makes it very easy for a developer, if they're trying to troubleshoot a report, to jump in here and access that query without having to launch Report Builder or Visual Studio and see what's going on with the report. So we've got a screenshot, we've got some documentation input by the developer, just to show you what that editor looks like. This is where you can upload images, you can modify the description. These editors are all Markdown, so you type in the raw Markdown here, and then you get a preview of how it renders over here. So like if I think it's the link syntax, so it's like this, so www.google.com. So yeah, you can see how that renders now. And if I click that, no, it didn't. I must have typed something wrong in my link, but regardless, you can fix that. I'm not going to save it either. So it supports full Markdown, and you can preview it, see how it's rendered. Got more information that you can populate about the ticket, or about the report. We track our Manage Engine is our support ticket system. Oops, I closed that. We include something called maintenance logs. Reloading. I get this sometimes when I do screen shares on here. The browser gets real unresponsive. But maintenance logs are a tool to help facilitate ongoing maintenance of the report library. And so reports in the library have, just stop this and reload. Reports in the library are all assigned a periodic maintenance schedule, and then we have a work queue in the system that members of the analytics team can go through and review reports that are due for maintenance, whether it's monthly, annually, biannually, and then they can go out and log maintenance on a maintenance log, which basically entails reviewing the report, checking the key assumptions, looking at the query, and then logging in the maintenance log that the report can stay as is without changes. It's approved with changes, and then they'll document their changes below, or even recommend that the report be retired, and then that goes into another work queue for retiring reports from the system. So we can actively purge the system of incorrect reports. Another thing you can do from here, and I'll get more into this, is we track user runs, user activity. This is one of the key tools that we use within Atlas is we can see who is running the report. This is actually a subscription run. But you can see all the end users who are running the report. And if I click this, this will take me to a more detailed profile of that user's activity that's also built into Atlas. And I can also look at the history, recent runs, sorted. Yeah, so I can see the most recent run, how long it took to run. So this is a long running report, this, which I think is why it's mostly run via subscription. And we store this information, and so that we have in our application database, we can actually go through and benchmark report runs, identify stuff that is long running that might be a good candidate for review and optimization. Of course, I can run the report directly from the entry. I can favorite the report. So if I click that, I can add it to my favorites. Sharing is something that's a really nice feature, especially for the Epic native reports. So I can click here and I can put in a username. I'm going to put in myself just to show you what happens when I do this. I can put in a username. I can put in a custom message. I'm just going to say, hi, Dan. And it will share within Atlas a link to this documentation entry that someone can then favorite. They can launch the report from. So I get a little message sent. I get a little thing up here. I have an inbox. And if I refresh this, let's pretend I'm someone else and I just came into Atlas. If I refresh this, I now have this shared report in this list of reports that were shared with me that I can click on. And what do you know? It takes me right to that report within Atlas. Let's say I try to run this and I get a message in SSRS. I would just get an access denied message when I try and open the website, and I can show you what it looks like in Hyperspace as well. For Epic native reports, I would get a little pop-up in the environment saying that I don't have access to that report. But for Meteor environment, I can request access. So what happens is this actually goes into a review queue for the director. So I would have to say, oh, my boss is, this is my actual boss. Say my boss is Kyle Hansen in this case, and I could submit, and that will automatically in our Manage Engine ticketing system generate a request ticket to give me, Dan Ryan, access to this report with a link to this report in Atlas, and it'll also go into a queue for that director to review and prioritize. And also for access requests, since it's so quick, we can also just reach out to the director and say, hey, so-and-so wants this access to this report. Are you, is that something they need? Do you approve that? I can actually, these both also generate tickets into our system. I can send myself a compliment, like, this rules. And if I click submit, I don't want to clog up my ticketing system, so I won't do that. But that'll just create a ticket. It's a feedback ticket in our system that says, hey, this is great. I think more important feature here is instead I can generate another ticket that says this doesn't rule, and explain why, so that the team is notified that there's a problem with the report. This will launch the report builder editor, and this will launch the manager activity. So that's what the documentation entries look like. Let me see if I can find another one, because this report actually doesn't have a documented term, but a lot of our reports do. So let's see. Yeah, here's a good one. This is a clinical report. Another thing that you can do, this one doesn't either. Better idea. Here, let me show you what a radar dashboard looks like. because Radar dashboards, since Radar dashboards are really collections of smaller reports, dashboard components, they're formatted and structured a little bit differently. So if you go to a Radar dashboard, as you can see, because of my access, I'm also told that this report is past due for maintenance, just a message for me to review and add a maintenance log to it. The way we structure the entries is there's an entry for the dashboard, and we'll put full dashboard screenshots on there, and a description of the intent and usage of the dashboard as a whole. And then we have the section down here for relationships, and we include, this is from our LDAP and EPIC EMP extract. We include group memberships both in EPIC and from LDAP. And then we have the section called reports included in this report. So this is where all of the components of the dashboard are listed. So let's say I'm an executive, I'm looking at this dashboard, the daily census report. Here's the first page, and I'm really interested in these daily admissions stats. So I can go out to the Atlas entry for the daily census report and read up about that dashboard in general, and then I can go down here and find, oh, daily admissions stats. Yes, this is the component I'm used to looking at. I can click there, and I get more information specifically about how this component works. And included in the documentation for this component, and this is manually added, this doesn't come through automatically because you have to define these terms within Atlas. I have all of these different term entries, but what's cool about these is these are concepts that are defined and agreed upon within our data governance process, and then they can be attached to a bunch of different reports. So I can click this and I can see, oh, okay, this is how we define an ADT inpatient admission, because even something as straightforward sounding as an admission, can mean different things in different parts of the system depending on who you're talking to. So even something as, simplistically sounding as an admission has to be clearly defined, otherwise someone might be confused. So this is specific admission to a base class of inpatient. So nobody confuses it with an admission to observation status or an admission to the ED. So that's how terms work. And I can show you, I'm just going to pop open this term in Atlas. So here's the documentation entry. You can see we've got a couple reports that this term is linked to. The editor looks pretty similar to the report documentation editor. And I can favorite a term, I can share a term, I can add another term from here. So there's quite a bit I can do from the terms as well. So that's how terms work. And I'll show you terms in other contexts as I move further along. Try to keep an eye on time. What's cool about this, though, so this is a dashboard component. In the relationship section, I can track. So if you've ever had this problem, which I had this problem all the time, let's say I found a component that had an issue with it and needed to be corrected, or maybe it needed to be removed from the system altogether. It wasn't easy to figure out all the places that component was used. In Atlas, it's super easy. So this dashboard component is on all these dashboards. It's that simple. So this dashboard component has wrong information. I know that I need to go through and remove it from all these dashboards if it can't be fixed. I can also pull in query information for metrics that are included on this component. So this is really nice. You can see these are IDN records. They roll up onto this component, and then we are, again, going through metadata and clarity. And actually, I think this is a Chronicles extract. and pulling in the SQL from the parsers section, if you know what I'm talking about in the editor, that populates those metrics. Go back to this daily census report. So as I was saying earlier, we track end user usage of these reports. And we use that information to build out a profile for end users to see what other users are doing in terms of report usage. So let's say I'm a director of some subset of medical group practices. I can take a look at all the reports that one of my colleagues who's a director of some other subset of medical group practices is using. Maybe we're both over primary care. That can be useful information to help me learn how to get the most out of the data that's available to me. So when you go to report, you can see the information about all the end users who are running it. This isn't an SSRS report. If it's for SSRS reports, we also track subscriptions. We're working on getting Epic native report subscriptions in here as well. I've figured out how to extract that. We just haven't incorporated it into our ETL yet. And then from here, I can jump right into the profile of that end user. So this happens to be the profile of our chief nursing officer. So I've jumped right into her profile. And this is available to every other user. Try and make it as transparent as possible. Like every user can see what every other user is doing. And I can look at all of the reports that she's running. I'm going to sort this by last run. By default, it searches by, let me show you that again. So by default, these are her most run reports first. So for instance, I think this goes back, it's like 2 years of activity. This was her most run report for a long time, but she hasn't run it since May of last year. So at some point she decided she didn't need that report anymore. So I can filter this and look at her most recent report activity. No surprise, the daily census report, the report we came from that she's the #1 user of, is right up there. Let's see. And then from here, I can go right into the documentation again. So now we're back to the documentation for a specific report. This is the documentation about our COVID-19 Pulse dashboard and all the components included in there. And if I jump back to where I was, it's also, this is how you get to users report profiles. I can also get to it up here by going this way. I can search for someone else. So I'm going to search for our chief financial officer. And I can see the reports that she runs, and I can see her subscriptions and her activity. She hasn't done, this is like, I think, last 7 days of search history, so she gets most of her reports via subscription, so she hasn't been in. I can just see all of her favorites too. So if I worked for the CFO, reported to the CFO, or just wanted to be aware of what the CFO was tracking, this is a great way to do it because I can see all the stuff that she is looking at on a regular basis. Let's see. Other items that are available. So we have a structure for curating reports and making them available as kind of a curated list of information to end users. So we do this, like those curated lists are called data projects, and then we also have kind of an umbrella to group data projects together called data initiatives. Both names are fairly arbitrary, but that's what we landed on. So data initiatives, just to give you an example, we have a data initiative for readmissions management. So I can open this up, and in fact it only has one data project on it, but the idea is we can have these collections of curated lists of reports related to all of our readmissions initiatives. Since really our focus in managing readmissions is related to the hospital readmissions reduction program from CMS. We end up just having one data project that is the HRRP readmissions monitoring data project. So I can go from the initiative to the project, or I can also go directly to the project. But with this is the explanation of the program, the purpose of this project, a little bit of information about who watches and manages the project, linked reports. So here's the important thing. If you've dealt with readmission reporting, readmission is not a clearly defined term. So there's all sorts of ways to define readmission, you know, a 30-day readmissions, 30-day CMS readmission. You know, CMS readmission is not the same as necessarily as I was here last week and I'm back this week. There's a lot more criteria that goes into it. You have to meet certain diagnostic qualifications. You have to not fall into certain exclusion criteria. It's not a count of readmissions, actually. It's a count of index admissions with readmissions, right? So there's a complicated algorithm that goes into that calculation that may not be the same as the report that the you know, ED director wants, where they want to see everyone readmitted to the ED in the past week. And by that, they just mean they were here earlier in the month and now they're back. So if you're an executive or a director and you want to know what reports to look at for tracking for the specific program, this is where you can go. And this was part of a project between analytics and quality improvement, population health, to put together this curated list. And so you can go, you know, if you go to these reports, these are the reports that are related to the HRRP program. And so these are all there. You got annotations. You can open the report in Atlas. You got more documentation there. You'll notice, with our screenshots, we go through and make sure we removed any PHI. So you'll see no PHI within these screenshots. That's part of the documentation review process that goes into our development cycle. So within the data project, you can see all these linked reports. You can also see linked terms. And so this is a specific definition of a specific way to define a readmission, which is how Epic does it. So Epic, like, you know, with our own internal data, we can't model the exact readmission calculations that CMS does because they can include data from other hospitals so we don't have access to. So this is the term that defines how the Epic algorithm for modeling the CMS readmission rate works. So this is a huge term, and then you can see all the reports that include this term. We actually do something called milestones as well, where we track activities that we're supposed to be doing in relation to this data project. So that's data projects. Just for terms, if you wanted to just start with terms or look up available terms, it's all available here as well. So these are all sorts of different terms that we have. To set access, that's based on user roles and then security points defined by those roles. So by default, everybody in the organization can access Atlas since it contains no PHI and it doesn't grant you any access to actual reports. It only grants you access to report documentation. And then if you want to actually access the report and you don't have access to it, you can request it through the app. So by default, everybody in the organization has generic user access, but then you can also take someone else, just pull someone up, and give them additional access. And all these are defined roles that we can control the security around. So that's set here. So these are the different roles that we have available, and you can create a new role if you want as well. But user is the default, so user just has basic access to search and user search, view other users, and they can view terms. And then administrator just by default has access to all of it. And so these are what we have defined. Although to find these other ones, but everybody on my team actually has administrator access at this point. You use something called parameters. You can set URL string parameters that do things like, I think this is the most useful example. You can create a message so that when you come to the site with that message in the URL parameter, so you can use it to kind of control what people see when they come to the site. You send them a link with that URL parameter, they'll see that message when they connect to the site. I can show an example of that a little later. To track analytics, so you can look at top users, most popular pages, search. And we have these task queues. So we monitor reports that are flagged to retire. There's nothing in there right now. Stuff that's not used, stuff that needs maintenance. The maintenance queue I was talking about, just a lot in there. I think we probably got a little too optimistic in how we defined our maintenance schedules. Stuff that people outside of the analytics team has edited. So this is something I like to keep an eye on because these are supposed to come to our code review meetings. Stuff that needs to be documented with create status. So this is stuff that we've built that's useful to us. Okay, so I teased it a little bit, so let me show you, since this is all embedded into Hyperspace, let me show you what that looks like in Hyperspace. So you can do basically all the same things I've shown from the web in Hyperspace as well, and then there's quite a bit of integration for working with Epic native reports. So we tried to embed it into Hyperspace as much as possible. We created this tab. It's right next to your radar dashboards that you can just click on, and it pops you right into Atlas. So it's a little bit of challenge and work with the TS to make sure we got this on every user template, but I think we're there at this point. So everyone that logs into Hyperspace sees the little pondering emoji up there, and they know they can click on that and go right into Epic. If somehow they didn't, or somehow they lost this link, it's also available in My Reports. We turn My Reports from a button into a drop-down that has Atlas there. We put it over here in Reports. We put it in the search. So if you just search for Atlas, then it pops up. So we just made that activity available in as many ways as possible. However, somebody could potentially get to reports. We wanted to have Atlas right there where they navigated. So again, this works the same way. I'm going to go back to the daily census dashboard. It's kind of a nice showpiece to show it off. So you notice the difference in the web. If I search for daily census, I can spell it. Run report is now grayed out. And I've got a message saying, log into Hyperspace if you want to run this report. In Hyperspace, I search for the same thing. Now I can run the report. I also have a link to edit the report. And that does exactly what it sounds like it does. I click that, and it launches it in Radar. And there I am directly in the report. And same thing with the editor. I can just launch it directly within the editor. And that works for workbench reports. This is a PHI report, so I'm not going to show it. I'll show you how the edit works. The only thing it doesn't work for, because you know, why would it be easy, is Crystal reports. So Crystal reports, I can search for Crystal. This edit, actually I can edit the HRX, but I can't run the HRX from Atlas. It's just not something that's been made available in the Epic Crystal integration. But, and like a lot of people I talk to, I hear the same thing. We're trying to get away from Crystal reports as fast as we can. We haven't developed a new Crystal report since 2016, and we're game planning out how we can just retire that server and migrate those users to other tools. So that is the integration. Oh, actually, this will show better in the web. One of the cool things in here, since we're bringing in the query information, is we allow you to filter search on specific pieces of the documentation. So if you know there's a report out there that has this name, you can search just the name and it'll only return results that match on the name. Same with all these different pieces of the report documentation, including the query. What that means is, let's say there's a column that was deprecated, like this one. I think it's called patient MRN. Pat mRNA ID is still around, but patient MRN. I can search for patient MRN, and I can go down here and say, okay, I just want to search the, give it a second to, so I just want to search the query. Click there, and now I have search results that are matching on patient MRN in the query. And I can hop into the documentation. This lag you're seeing, this is because of the screen sharing. It does this to me when I do the screen sharing. This isn't something that we normally run into. Anyway, I can jump into the documentation there, and if I pop open the query, I will see all the places that it is specifically referencing at MRN. Yeah, there it is. Jump to the query, and I can search the page for it's not Pat MRN, it's patient MRN. So I can see it. It's somewhere here in the query. Okay, well, we have 14 minutes left, so I want to give folks a chance to ask questions. And I'll send this out. This code is all available on GitHub. I'll send out a link. And the backend stack, it's SQL Server, the application database. It's a C# Razor Pages ASP.NET app. We host it on IIS for the web server. And then it's a SSIS-based ETL with some, that's SSRS and Clarity stuff is SSIS. And then the Tableau piece that we're working on, some of the, I think Crystal is Python-based. So really, if you wanted to stand it up, you'd need a database. You could run it on your Clarity server if you wanted to. You don't necessarily have to have a new database license to do this, but you needed a database that you could run Python on and you could run SSIS on to load the ETL. And then you need a Windows server with IIS on it to host the website. Okay, that was about 45 minutes of presentation. Do we have questions? Do people have specific things they want to see? I don't think I'm controlling anybody's muting. There's
Hey Dan, this is
got
Trevor.
the chat up also. Oh, sure.
It was Trevor at Peace Health. Really cool stuff here. Once you have everything set up, I mean, how much ongoing maintenance do you generally need to do on the tool itself?
We're mostly doing, I mean, there's bug fixes that we're doing, you know, and even, I'm sure Chris Pickering and Sean Pickering are both on the call. They're cousins, not brothers. They're the guys that are doing most of the development on Atlas these days. And so I think they probably took notes on some bugs that we saw in this demo. So we're doing bug fixes all the time and pushing those out to the GitHub repo. If we had other people using it, I think we would develop a more standard release schedule to address that stuff. But I mean, most of what the work we do on this is adding new features. So like what we've been working on is Tableau extracts and the built-in Epic email subscriptions for Workbench reports and dashboards, being able to extract those. You know, the tool for the most part can sit as is. And the ETL is incredibly reliable. We have very little issues with having to maintain or update it.
And for the ETL, you're using SSIS?
Yes, it's mostly SSIS. There's some Python as well for things like parsing XML, querying the Tableau database. And Chris Pickering, please chime in if I'm leaving something out. Scott Manley too.
And so, you know, in terms of, oh, go ahead.
I was just wondering, in terms of expansion to other sites, how much have you done, and how much work is that? How much customization is there at other sites to get this working and stable?
So we're doing this right now. So we're figuring it out. So we had a call earlier this week going through the ETL with another site. One of the things that I think there's a few items that require some customization of the ETL. So we have our ETL is actually pointed at 3 SSRS servers by default. So if you have more or less than that, and you need to go in and remove those sections of the ETL, we had kind of an epiphany this week as to how we could structure that to make it easier, right? Which is just have one SSRS package. Right now, SSRS and Clarity are combined into a single package. Just have one SSRS package that you can deploy for as many servers as you're interested in. So that's something we're probably gonna get set up for ourselves at some point once we have the development capacity to do that. We've got quite a bit of integration with our ticketing system, which is ManageEngine. So those auto-generated tickets are using the ManageEngine API to generate XML and create tickets in that system. So if you have something else, then you would need to, you know, either just turn those features off or implement something that could work with that API. So we were talking to a site the other day. They have Service Manager. They had some familiarity with the Service Manager API, and so they thought maybe they could just implement that with Service Manager, like we've done with ManageEngine. Beyond that, like we have one Clarity environment, so like similar to SSRS, there may be a need to set up multiple ETLs depending on your number of Clarity environments. Other Riverside folks on the call, am I missing out on anything else in terms of customization?
And the only other thing that comes to mind is the LDAP configuration. So the way you have your LDAP set up would probably be different than we have. That's pretty basic.
Yeah, we've got a basic README out here right now, based on like our guesses as to what other places would need to do to get it working for themselves. But now that we're going to through that process with another org, we should be able to refine that. And I think like in the spirit of an open source project and looking for contributions from other places, I think other places that would want to implement this, one of the biggest areas they could make, immediately make contributions is in documentation and helping other folks. Documentation and even like, paying it forward. Like I'll work with you on getting your ETL stood up, and then this org over here is looking to do the same thing. Maybe you work with them to get it stood up. So this is our best guess, but even in the last couple of weeks working with folks, we've had some aha moments as to how we could make some of the stuff easier.
Yeah, that's great. You also answered my next question, which was, how are you looking for people to contribute? So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to that, if you want to fix bugs, that would be great. I think we could start doing, we can use the pull request issues on GitHub, that whole process as well. I think probably one of the big contribution areas, and something we've worked with another org a little bit who was interested in the ETL, is they were able to modify the ETL to pull in Power BI. And so other report servers that we don't use, that could be an area of contribution as well. We're working on Tableau right now. We don't use Power BI. So, if we could get Power BI into the ETL, that would be great. We use the most basic, cheapest, Epic Crystal integration, but I know a lot of folks use Webby, use full-on business objects. Incorporating that into the ETL could be a great use case. We have some slicer dicer stuff behind the scenes, but it's not visible in the tool, figuring out how to do slicer dicer. But I think those are all big opportunities for contributions. Oh, question, can you see when a user administrator is not working in the organization anymore? Did they have to be removed manually? They do not have to be removed manually. Their report activity and information stays in Atlas. So, just an example, go to users. I'm going to search for, we had a vice president of revenue cycle named, his last name was Excel, which led to all sorts of jokes, but he's no longer with the organization. He left in August, but I can still see all of his report activity. And Chris or Scott, because I'm probably going to botch how this works. Their LDAP user will disappear, but then we can key off their Epic EMP record, right? Or do I have that backwards?
Yeah. No, you have it right. The LDAP disappears, but we retain that information in the Atlas database. And the Epic one does remain, so we can continue to pull that in.
Let's see. Thank you. Okay, if anyone else has a quick question, because like I said, I do have to drop off at 2, I can try and answer it. Otherwise, I'll send out an email link to the GitHub repo, and if we do something else like this, specifically with standing up the ETL, which we're talking about doing, I'll send an invite out to this group as well for anybody who'd be interested in hopping on for that. All right. Well, in that case, before a bunch of Riverside people start pouring into this meeting, I'm going to go ahead and end it. So thanks, everybody. I hope this was helpful and informative. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's great.